are you? About 2 minutes and see if our fourth candidate arrives. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I have about 7:02, and we need to respect everyone's time tonight. We may end up with 3 candidates tonight on stage instead of 4, but we'll play that by ear and see how it goes. Good evening and welcome to the local candidate forum featuring Hays City Commission candidates here on the campus of Fort Hays State University. Thank you to our host, Tiger Media Network, for streaming this event through the FHSU Student Government Association Facebook page and other media channels. We would also like to take a moment to thank our other sponsors for this event, Student Government Association, the American Democracy Project, the Department of Political Science, the Chamber in Hays, Kansas, and the Docking Institute of Public Affairs. I am one of your moderators, Dr. Brett Zollinger, Director of the Docking Institute and Professor and Chair of the Department of Sociology at Fort Hays State University. I am joined by Spencer Manning, a senior studying political science at FHSU from Lawrence, Kansas, and also by Caden Sanders with the SGA. Caden is our timekeeper this evening. We have with us tonight our candidates for the Hays City Commission. Seated alphabetically from left to right is, well, here we go, right on cue. Thank you for joining us. So, seated alphabetically left to right here is candidate Samuel Allen, Reese Barrick, Sandy Jacobs, and Sean Musil. Please note that there is one additional candidate on the ballot, Demetrius Chance. Mr. Chance no longer resides in the city of Hays. Welcome to all of you candidates, and thank you for being here for this forum. The format of the forum is as follows. Each candidate will have a 60-second opening statement. In that statement, we will ask that the candidates address why they are running for a position on the City Commission and what skills and/or experience they would bring to the Commission. Then we will move on to questions. We will begin with a few questions prepared by the committee that planned this forum. Following those questions, we will ask questions from the audience and community members. We have accepted questions submitted online in advance, and we will accept questions from those here in attendance tonight, as well as those who are viewing online. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. If a specific candidate is named in a response from one of the other candidates, the named candidate will have an opportunity to make a 30-second rebuttal. We encourage questions from the audience. Please submit your question in the comments section of the live stream if you are watching online, or write your questions on one of the cards handed out this evening if you are with us in person. About 20 minutes into the forum, we will begin collecting questions from the audience. At that time, please pass your cards to the end of the row, as one of our volunteers will be by to collect them. We will get to as many questions from the audience as time allows. Each candidate will have a 60-second closing statement. Of course, we encourage and appreciate civility and a healthy, robust discussion. In order to move through as many questions as possible, we ask that members of the audience please refrain from applauding, cheering, or demonstrating during the forum. And if you have not already done so, we would ask that you please silence your phones now. Okay, so candidates. We will begin opening statements in alphabetical order. Then, for each new question, we will rotate to the next candidate in line to answer the question first. Mr. Allen, we will begin with your opening statement first. You have 60 seconds.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rutal.
We have to hold down the mic.
I am. Okay. I'm seeking a seat on the Hays City Commission. As I am a lifelong resident of Hays, attended TMP Marion, Thomas More Prep, you may notice that I'm much younger than the other candidates for the City Commission. While I don't have as much experience as others, I do have a sense of responsibility and accountability to the community we serve. I believe that we must honor our past, but sometimes we have to be willing to make changes if we are to build a better future. I am adamant about protecting our community, but also making sure that we are all working together to ensure its potential. My loyalties will always lie with the City of Hays and the community. As a part of the City Commission, I hope to work with businesses and citizens to provide affordable housing for everyone, strive to create jobs, and hopefully leave Hays a better place than when I started.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Barrick, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Reese Barrick, and I'm running for City Commission, and I've been a Hays resident for 12 years, where I've been the director of the Sternberg Museum, and as a part of that, I've also been a member of the Hays Convention and Visitors Bureau for the last 12 years, which has given me a fun, unique insight into the importance of events and tourism in the hotels to Hays, As a museum director, I've gotten to meet a lot of people from inside of Hayes and outside of Hayes to get a really fun perspective on the city, and I've come to have a really deep appreciation for the city. I was asked and encouraged by a number of people to run for the city commission, and I really feel strongly that one of the things that's important is that for democracy to work, people have to have a choice. There need to be enough people running for a position, and I think anybody can do it. And I'm willing to, put in the service for the community that I've really grown to love.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Ms. Jacobs, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you. I first also would like to thank the FHSU Student Government Association, the American Democracy Project. I had to write all these down. There's a lot of you great people. The Department of Political Science, the Chamber of Hayes, the Docking Institute of Public Affairs, and Tiger Media Network for all the work in putting this together in these candidate forums. I know what kind of organizational effort that takes. I've served as a commissioner for the past 5 years, and I feel I have a proven record of leadership, fiscal responsibility, infrastructure understanding, and am in tune with the needs of our community. I believe I'm aware of our needs, the resources available, and am aware of the public concerns that face Hayes. We have a very well-versed group of sitting commissioners, all with the best in mind for Hayes and the surrounding area. We have worked together to move the needle forward, and I believe we'll continue to do so. My banking background serves me well from a point of fiscal accountability, and my time with Heartland Community Foundation and my 40 years of volunteerism in the community clearly shaped my thinking on quality of life issues.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Mr. Musil, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
My name is Sean Musil. I've been a resident of Hayes for 25 plus years. I have a son, Brandon, that attends Fort Hays State. My wife is an instructor at Fort Hays State University. My son, Corey, is a junior at Hayes High. Megan is a fourth grader at Wilson Elementary. So I feel like my kids are spread out all over the place. And for me, coaching youth sports, being involved in kids' activities, I think has got me a good grasp of what's going on in our community. And owning a small business, I used to work in corporate for 20 plus years, and now I've owned a small business for 4 years. On a daily basis, I have an opportunity to sit down and talk to people on their feelings about our community and people that come into our community. And we have a great community, and I like to be part of that, continue to be part of it. I've been doing many miles of door-to-door. I think no matter how long you've been on the commission, you can still learn from the community, their needs and wants, and I will continue to do that up till the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Musil.
All right, for our first question this evening, what are your top 1 or 2 priorities for the city of Hayes in the next 2 to 4 years? Mr. Barrick, we'll start with you.
Here we go. Really, the top priority for the city doesn't have as much to do with the city commission. The school bond and the schools are going to be really a top priority for moving the city forward. For things that I think we really need to work towards is that the city needs to grow and progress because we're losing population in western Kansas, and Hayes is going to need to grow because there's going to be fewer people around. That means we're going to need more housing, a variety of housing that are different affordabilities. We need childcare, and we need to bring people to Hayes. These are all sort of tied together, and so we're going to have to work towards ways of bringing housing, bringing jobs, and bringing childcare to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Ms. Jacobs?
I concur with much of my button. People have to say, push your button. I really agree with much of what Reese has said. We understand and have talked a lot about housing needs, about daycare, which is a crisis in our community right now, workforce, and I totally agree on the school bond issue. I think we have a serious need. I think we have a great group of people that are facing that issue, and I'm anxious to hear what they have to say. I think our infrastructure is important. I think we have a good understanding. We have a tremendous staff in the city that brings us great recommendations. I think infrastructure should be in front of us at all times. And from the beginning, I think you've all known about me that know me, it's about quality of life in this community. A fellow commissioner a few years back that's not here anymore, I remember he said the best thing that we need in this community, and that's 5,000 more citizens. So we're going to work real hard to try to make that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Mr. Musil?
I kind of agree with both of them. We need more housing, we need more jobs. I think the commission currently is doing everything possible to bring more housing, attract more building. I know in the last year and a half we've had 30-plus structures built, whether it's been a house or duplexes. We need that. We need more of them. And it's going to continue to happen. Unfortunately, the prices have gone up, so that's slowed some of the building. But I believe if we get more houses here, we'll get more people working. And we need, I mean, from the minimum wage to the high-end jobs, we need both of them. And, you know, we'll continue to work on that. And, I mean, to me, that is 100% a priority for not only the city commission, but it should be for everybody in this community.
Thank you. And Mr. Allen?
As I concur with all the candidates here, I agree with all of them. We need to work on a bond that we can agree on and pass, but that's not specifically a city issue. When it comes to housing, I believe the biggest or best way to build our community is keeping the college students here after they graduate. That's why it's so important we try to make housing more affordable for these people who have just graduated college and may be in debt or are struggling financially because of finishing school. We want those people to stay. I've met many of them through the sister cities of Hayes. Olga is from Germany, and she decided to stay in Hayes after college. And I love hearing the stories of people who came here, fell in love with our community, and they stayed. And that's what we need. That's what's going to build our city the best, I believe.
Thank you for that, candidates. I'm going to shift to the topic of water. If the Kansas judicial system does not yield a positive decision on the R9 Ranch water rights in Edwards County for Hayes and Russell, what do you see as the next course of action for the city? And this question goes first to Ms. Jacobs.
We're counting on the judicial procedure to rule in our favor. We're very fortunate to have a city manager that is well-versed in water. I would probably put him up against anybody in the state of Kansas in terms of what he knows. He has worked diligently with attorneys and with the Water Commission. We believe we see success just around the corner. As far as if we don't, I think we have to go back to the drawing board, because as people may not believe, we started looking at things 20 years ago, and we've looked at every possible opportunity, I believe, to this point. If it doesn't pass, I think we have a hard road to hoe.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Musil.
I would agree with what Mayor Jacobs said. We got the best person in charge running it. We believe it's going to happen. We wish it would happen yesterday. I think we're all in on it. We need it. It's not just for Hayes, it's for our region. If we want to continue to grow our region, we need that water. You know, we've done all the studies. I mean, we got a room full of studies, and I'm sure we can always go back to it, but financially, I don't see that the right thing to do. Like I said, all the commissioners I know I've served with for many years, we're all in. This is the right thing to do. It's just a matter of time, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allen.
As I concur, our city manager, Toby, is a great man. He's very well versed in the world of that. I also agree that I believe that they will agree and keep the water here. But we will have to go back to the drawing board, and that'll be very expensive for the city, for the region, and it will be a long road ahead of us for us to decide how we get our water safely and all over the Russell and Hayes.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Barrett.
Well, I have to say that one of the things that I appreciate about the City Commission since before I was here, as you've mentioned, is that they've very often been very forward-thinking, and the thought of, the Hayes community has always been really good about conservation of water, and the commission was very forward-thinking in trying to find new sources of water, and I think this is a very important one for us to get. Failure is not an option with this. One of the things we probably are going to have to think about is even when we get the water and spend the money to get it here, I know that there's more iron and sorts of things in the water down there that when we mix it with the water up here, we're still going to have issues to deal with that water. But I think there's failure is just really not an option at this point.
Thank you, candidates. This next question's in regard to growth. So where do you see the city of Hayes in relation to growth in the next 5 to 10 years, and what role does or should the city of Hayes play in economic development? Mr. Musil, we'll start with you.
I think we should, we have a big role in that. I think we have a great relationship with Grow Hayes. Doug Williams has done a great job of fostering housing growth and telling us what we need. One thing we can't be afraid to do is, finance them. In years past, I know when I first got on, 1 year we'd fund them, 1 year we wouldn't fund them. And they've got a good program going. We know it's the right thing to do. And if we don't get more housing, we won't grow. And, you talk to people all over town, whether it's a $300,000 house or, a $200,000 house, we need them in all directions. And I think if we leave the right people in charge, people that, has lived this for many years, I think we're going to be successful, and I think we're going to continue to grow.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
As I said in my opening statement, I believe the biggest need right now for growth will be housing. As Doug through Grow Hayes is working on his properties, but that's more oriented to the older generation, the ones who come here to retire. But if we help with housing needs and costs, we can keep the people from graduating, or they come here for, many of our nurses at Hayes Med are from other parts of the world or even the state. But they need to be able to afford housing, and if they can't afford housing, there's no way for the city of Hayes to grow. Because when those people stay, they have families, and those families get bigger, and that's the best way for us as a city to grow.
Thank you. Mr. Barrick?
Hi, yes, I think there's a number of things. I agree with what's been said. Housing is important, but the real main things for recruiting new people to come to Hayes or keeping people that have gotten to Hayes, we have a great hospital. That's important part of quality of life. We've got a great university. It's a great important part of the quality of life. We've got a very nice art scene. There's sports and recreation. There's a lot of great things we have, but if we want to get people here, they're going to look at what their schools their children are going to be in. So the school bond is going to be hugely important to recruit people. Housing is a thing that we're going to have to work on and spend money on to create the housing, because there's got to be places for people to live. And I think we also will have to address the fact that, we have 2% unemployment, which is not very big for getting businesses, but we have 20% poverty rate. So that's something that's don't jive with each other, and we have to change that to make it useful for people to want to move here.
Thank you. And Ms. Jacobs?
I'm going to tape it down. I think it's going to take a real collaborative effort in our community to make things happen. Those of you that know me know I'm kind of a goal setter, and I believe that no goal will ever be met if you don't say it out loud. I've been working with the university, working with Dr. Mace. I've been working with the medical center, trying to get everybody, seeing we're all on the same page. The goal that I've set is that we would like to have 5,000 students on campus, and of those 5,000, we'd like to keep 500 in Hayes every year. Again, people kind of fall over and laugh, but I believe if you don't say it, it doesn't happen. I think that we're looking at the right things. We're looking at the possibility of a retiree community. We're looking to other areas of Kansas that have folks ready to retire. We believe we have everything here in Hayes to attract them, other than that housing issue. And by looking directly at a retirement community, I think that'll help a lot.
Okay, thank you, candidates. And I would point out that we do have someone now walking the aisles here and collecting any of the audience questions on the note card. So please feel free to pass those down to the end of your aisle there, end of your row. Well, you've touched on this, candidates. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to speak a little bit more about workforce. What do you think about the problem with local labor supply, at least now? And then what measures should the city take to resolve the issue, if any? And I believe we are ready to start with you, Mr. Allen.
So as I am not as well versed as my other candidates up here, my understanding anyway, is that most of our workforce out in the business world would be more of, or I guess retail world area, would be more of our college kids. Well, those college kids leave, and then so from when they're gone, there's no one here. We need to find ways to create jobs that are sustainable through the entire time they're here, whether they leave and then they can come back and just start up again and not have to worry about finding new jobs, starting it all over, be able to come back and just be able to stay where they are.
Thank you. And Mr. Barrett?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues, and one of them is we have to have, it's a tough cycle. You have to have more people here to attract businesses, and you need more jobs for people. I think keeping students here is going to be important. Affordable housing for them is going to be important. We are starting working on a retirement community, which is great, which will also add some child care, as I understand. But bring retired people into town, that's not helping the workforce out. So we need to attract other people, whether it's starting out by looking at ways to get people that can work from home. Since the pandemic started, bring them from the cities to move to a small town where they can enjoy our quality of life. And that's taking a little bit of money to spend to try to attract those types of people here. And once we grow with the college kids and other people, then we can attract businesses, which will continue to compound.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Jacobs?
Well, I think it was a great question, Dr. Zollinger, and I wish we all had the answer of how this was going to happen. If you do, we're going to put you up here as a candidate, I think. One of the conversations that we kind of anecdotally have, and I think maybe I'm getting a little more serious about it all the time, is from a city standpoint, what kind of an incentive base is possible that could attract people to this community? Paying some kind of a bonus reward for relocation and staying a period of time. When that first was said, and I believe it was my fellow commissioner that may have started that conversation, I kind of looked back on it and thought, nah, that'll never happen. But the more dire it gets, we see businesses closing, numbers of hours a day, we see restaurants closing. I don't know why university students aren't working, but I also know on campus has declined somewhat. So another thing is to be able to continue to work with the university, to continue to grow that on-campus enrollment so that we do have those folks out there to help as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Mr. Musil.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we may possibly have to incentivize. We have talked about this recently at a commission meeting, what that incentive looks like. It's, we've talked to other communities around us that have started doing it. Some it seems like it's worked for, some it hasn't. But as the colleges grow in our town, and we have, not just Fort Hays, we have NCK and Hays Hair Academy. As they grow, I think that will help. But I think as our CVB, they do a great job of selling our community. We got to get outside of Hays and tell people how good our community is. I've recently talked to people that have been in my business, and they moved back to Hays because of what's going on in Hays for young people. And we just got to keep doing that. Our workforce has changed, there's no doubt. I think the employees may have to adapt, or the employers may have to adapt to the workforce, but we do need housing. I mean, it all goes together. If they don't have housing and affordable housing, which that's different to everyone, then it won't work.
Thank you very much. Candidates?
Candidates, varied opinions exist regarding the city's funding of outside agencies. In your opinion, how should outside agencies go about requesting funding from our city? Mr. Barrick, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that outside agencies need to have a plan of the funds that they're going to request, how they're going to be used, and how they're going to benefit the community in general. And then I think they need to have a written document, report, and then come to the city commission and try to sell it. And those, depending on the funds that are available from the city, those places that have things that will benefit parts of the community the most will be the most successful.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Ms. Jacobs?
I think we should always make sure we have funding available for outside agencies and look at that in our budgeting process. I think there's two different kinds of outside agencies, and we should consider those when deciding. One are those that have an economic impact in our community and can demonstrate that economic impact. I think is very important. The other side is quality of life. We're not going to attract anybody to this community if we don't continue with great quality of life issues. We have a care council that's designed by the city that covers lots of different agencies in the community. That is, that's a great way. But I agree totally with Mr. Barrick in that we have to have people that have plans. People that come before us and make a request and they don't know where, why, how, or when. It makes it very difficult to fund in that nature. But most of our agencies that come forward have great plans, and we have amazing agencies in this community that are doing great things economically and from quality of life.
Can I just say ditto? No, I think we should always fund outside agencies, but they should have a plan. They should be able to tell us what they've done with the money in the past and, where they're going forward with it. I think the Care Council, because of all the agencies that it affects, should always be the first one that we fund. And as long as it's not what I would say to where we'll have to raise taxes or, to fund it, I think we should always do it. Most of these, like you'd say, Commissioner Jacobs, a lot of them have economic input to our community. So as long as we're getting that output from them, I think it's something that we should always do. And, we give a scholarship to Fort Hays, which is extremely important for what they do to our community. And many of these groups that are outside agencies are some of the best volunteers in this community that you'll ever meet. And when they come to you, they have really good plans, and it's really good to see what they do for our community.
Thank you. And Mr. Allen?
As Sean and Sandy mentioned, the Care Council I currently sit on, thanks to Mayor Jacobs and Commissioner Musil, that is a great way for our nonprofit agencies in the city of Hays to acquire funds. It is a great avenue, but I do believe that businesses that come to the city for funding should always, quote unquote, be ready to sell themselves to the commissioners so that they can show us that they know how to use the money, what the money will be used on, so that we can provide funding for them, which we should, because that is a big way to help our community grow in the business aspect of Hays.
Okay, thank you for that. And a somewhat related question. What do you perceive as the commission's role in relation to other governing bodies in the community? And I believe we're ready for Ms. Jacobs.
Would you repeat the question? I want to make sure I understand it.
You bet. What do you perceive as the commission's role in relation to other governing bodies in the community?
I think we have a very, very serious role, and that word collaboration is going to come out again. I've had the privilege of working with the county commissioners this year, kind of on a one-on-one basis. I've been meeting with them regularly to hear about what's happening in the county, tell them what's happening in the city, finding out what we can do together that makes a difference. That's the same in working with any outside agency, the University and Medical Center. But the privilege of working with county commissioners this year has been really good for me to understand a part of government that maybe I didn't have as good of understanding as I could. And we have found lots of areas where we think alike, much more than any that we don't think alike.
Thank you. Mr. Musil?
I would agree. We have a very important role. I think if we don't work together, really nothing gets accomplished. If you look at many communities that we get compared to, which is Kearney, Nebraska, and Garden City, they kind of all spoke with one voice, the chamber, the county, the city, and the school. And that's why you've seen growth, because they all talk the same language. And, I think we have a great relationship with the county. It used to be kind of behind the scenes, but now, we're out front and telling people what we're doing together. I think the school, I think we need to get a better relationship with them. I think we have a good relationship, but we need to help them get a bond passed. That's so important to our community. And if they want our help, I think we're all out there to help them. And I just think there's no one more important thing to do for us all to work together.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
As I myself do not know as much on this topic as the incumbents, I am willing and ready to learn about it. But I believe the commission should always play a vital role in helping other agencies or other governmental agencies in the community, and that we should always work together because we are always working together to look to grow our community and make it better than it was before. There should be, as I've seen, there has been a great relationship between the county and the city commissioners. I don't think there's the best relationship between the city and the school board. I'm not saying there's a bad relationship, but there could always be a better one because we all want our children in school to thrive and all of our schools in the city.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrick.
Here we go. I had to forget that once too.
Thank you.
All right. I think it's crucially important for the city and the county to be working together very closely. I learned today about a group called Imagine Ellis County. Hayes is a part of Ellis County. We share a lot of the same issues with infrastructure and water. And so it's vitally important to have a good relationship and work with the county because we're a part of the county. But I think it's, as we've talked about, I've talked about the biggest issue for Hayes is really going to be the school bond and to get new schools. So number one priority will be to work very closely with the school board because I want to be able to help push forward and support because that's really crucial.
Thank you, candidates. Now, numerous competing communities have been effective with their utilization of STAR bonds, TIFs, and CIDs. If elected or re-elected, would you support the use of these funding mechanisms to attract new businesses to Hayes? We'll start with you, Mr. Musil.
I would if it's right for our community. We have used those. You know, we were really short on hotel rooms for quite a few years, and now I believe we have over 1,000 rooms in City of Hayes, which, you know, we were just awarded the football game with, drawing a blank.
Oh,
Shrine Bowl.
Shrine Bowl, thank you, Chiefs. You know, and if we didn't have those hotels, we wouldn't be able to recruit that. Yeah, I think we have to use those incentives. They're out there. I think the city has a good checklist on, you know, if you want this is what you have to do to be able to get these incentives. I'd rather not give the incentives, but it's pretty much impossible to attract these businesses or buildings without the incentives.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioners. Is my understanding that we do not allow people to pay by bond right now? Or I knew they, how do I say, sorry, it must be, when they did the St. Joseph apartments, they said that there were ways to pay, but by bond was not one of them. Is that?
Feel free to address that if you'd like.
I'm sorry, I either don't understand the question, but I don't understand the question.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's fine. No worries. But I believe if it can help our community, I would fully, completely support that. Obviously, that will be more expensive for our community, but if it is what's needed to make our community thrive, then it's what's needed, and I would support that.
Thank you. Mr. Barrick?
Yes, we have to be open to all of the different options that are available to grow the community. We have to do it in a responsible way. We don't always want to give away the farm, but I think all of these methods can be used responsibly to help bring business and grow the community, which will help increase the quality of life.
Thank you. And Ms. Jacobs?
Incentives have their place. We, in the last few years, have rewritten our economic development policy and have made even amendments to that rewritten policy in order to get some things done in this community, one of which was to get a new RHID for the housing on 22nd Street. We looked at STAR bonds a number of years ago, and when I say we, it was an outside group. There's so many restrictions and how it really didn't work well for our community. All other incentives, I think when the plan comes forward, when the developer comes forward and has the outline, it's real easy to make that decision. We have some situations where they absolutely cannot go into the development if they do not have some of those incentives, and we're going to have to do it. Every community around us does it. If you look at Ford County and Dodge City and Garden City, you'll see some major incentives went on for a number of years to get what they got in Garden City.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to go ahead and switch to some audience questions. And I think we'll begin with this one, hitting on a topic that's already been touched on a bit, but asking some more detail. And this is for Mr. Allen first. What can the city do to incentivize future child care providers to open up in Hayes?
Child care is a big need in the city of Hayes. The problem, I believe, with the need for child care is that most of the rules and regulations to open a child care center are done through the legislature, through the state legislature. But if the person is able to meet those requirements that the state has, I think we could make incentives through the city to help people, maybe purchase items that they may need, small items and things like that. I really enjoy the idea that the Chamber of Commerce has. They have recently formed or are forming a group to look at how they can help grow and bring childcare to the city of Hayes.
Thank you for that. Mr. Barrick?
That's a really good question. The options for incentivizing, like I said, the rules and regulations are sort of set and out of the city commission's purview, unless I'm wrong. But I think finding different ways and options, like I know that the options that they're trying to do north of the hospital for the retirement community is trying to bring childcare where you're using the senior citizens as part of the childcare or interacting with the childcare. So I think there's lots of very innovative ways to expand childcare, and I'd be really open to learning about other options that we could use to incentivize helping people want to open up childcare.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
Daycare is in the forefront of most conversations that we're having, especially in workforce. We have many people, because they cannot find childcare, are leaving the workforce and staying home. We had a young couple come before the commission earlier this year that had less than 18-month-old child, and that's basically where the issue is under 18 months. We lost 12 or 16 daycare providers in the last 2 years in Hayes. They looked everywhere and were finally able to find a place in Ellis. But they came before the commission to express that need. Is there a way the city can help financially? Possibly. I think there's some legislative issues that we need to address. I think that we have great representation out of our area that can do that for us. We have good conversations with our representatives. I think everything's on the table right now, and I think that's probably the most important thing. Don't hesitate to come forward with any thoughts and ideas, because we're looking and considering everything.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Musil?
I would agree. It's been an issue for me. It's been at least 19 years that I know it was an issue when my kids were younger, and it's an ongoing issue. And I would agree most of it is state regulations. But if it's where we can do incentives to help people build like a center or different. I know there's been some development out by the hospital and ongoing talk with that. But I do kudos to the chamber for having this discussion. I think a lot of this discussion is when Mr. Wolf came and talked to us, and it's been out there forever. And I think, like Commissioner Jacobs said, if we just continue to talk about it, get the right people in the room, hopefully we can be part of the fix or get the right people to help fix it.
Thank you, candidates. We have another question from the audience. Do you think that Hayes residents are doing all they can to conserve water? If not, what other incentives for effective conservation practices or penalties for wasting water should be implemented? Mr. Barrick, we'll start with you.
Well, I know that Hayes is probably the top, as I recall, the top city in the state of Kansas for water conservation. So Hayes is really ahead of the curve as far as the state, as far as water conservation goes. Is every citizen doing all they can to conserve water? No, because I still can drive around and see sprinklers on while it's raining, or sprinklers on in the middle of the day when they're not supposed to be used. So there absolutely can be more done. The city has done a good job in funding advertisements to try to get people to keep conserving water. That has to work. And I think people just need to be informed and actually take the time to use their sprinklers wisely. And there can be higher penalties for when it's abused.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
I think there are higher penalties, and there are a few that just choose to pay them. I think that I think we're still the lowest per capita usage of water in the state of Kansas. One thing, when you say inform, I think we do a great job of that. Our Water Resource Department and Holly Dickman make sure that this is something that's going on in our schools, at education at all times and all issues. And there's nothing that makes things happen more than is if your child comes home and says, we don't want to flush every single time, or who left the water running. Our children, out of the mouths of babes, they say. I think our community has done amazing and has done amazing for years. It started way back when we were designated an all-American city. We were already at low usage at that point. But I think by constantly having it on the table, it continues. And shame on those few that don't.
Thank you. Mr. Musel?
Yeah, I think we do a great job. Last I knew, I think it was 95 gallons per person that we use in the city of Hayes. I think we do a great job with it. Yes, there are fines. I don't know if that's the ultimate way. I mean, sometimes fines actually turn people the other way, but they are out there. You know, we have incentives to help people reduce, and I think majority of the people do the right thing. But I'm more on the education part. I think you can't educate enough, and I think Holly Dickman, Jeff Crispin do a super job. They've kind of made it towards almost fun to do it. If you listen to their commercials, and they do a good job. They're not really boring like, you know, it used to be back in the day, and I think they do a great job, and we just can't stop doing that.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Allen?
I feel like as I've gotten older, at least recently, I've noticed more about the water department throughout the internet or social media sites than I did when I was in school here in Hayes. I believe that the city has some pretty good incentives already for water conservation for our citizens, and that I don't know if any more penalties would change that, because people who are already doing that don't really care about the penalties, and putting more penalties are just going to keep it the same, I believe. So I think education is probably our best bet on conserving more water and keeping our record the same.
Thank you, candidates.
So another audience question, something I don't think we've touched on tonight. What are your plans for bringing the commission's communications with the people of Hayes into the 21st century? And I believe we are ready for you, Ms. Jacobs.
I thought you were going to look at me right away, I think. And I'm going to ask you to restate it one more time.
Sure. What are your plans for bringing the commission's communications with the people of Hayes into the 21st century?
Oh, goodness. I think we really, I'm pretty proud of how we communicate. We actually have open meetings. People can attend all they want. We broadcast those meetings. We have a website where information can be attained from. I'm not sure what the 21st century means, but I think we're doing a really good job. If somebody has other ideas for us and would like to give us more ways that we can reach them. Some people, it's very difficult to reach because they don't do social media, they don't read the newspaper, they don't listen to the radio. I'm not sure where we go next, because we're usually on all of those, using all those resources. But I'm willing to listen if somebody has some ideas.
Thank you. Mr. Musel.
For me, and you can ask the city manager, that was probably one of my biggest complaints when I got on the commission is, you know, why don't we communicate better? And we do communicate, it's just I didn't know where we communicated. I think we've changed that. I think they do a lot better job. But I think if there's people that have a better idea, we need to listen to it. And like I've said before, I think our CVB has knocked it out of the park on, I mean, communication, advertising our community, but you can't stop. whether you're a business, I mean, you always got to advertise, you got to, sell your community. And, but like I said, if there's a better way to communicate and people have an idea for us, please let us know.
Thank you. And Mr. Allen?
I believe the commission has a great advertisement per se in this community. I will say, based on you would call me a 21st century kid, I don't see as much as the commission as a whole on social media, more as commissioners' personal pages are more on social media, as I feel like more of our younger generation, such as myself or other college kids or high schoolers, would find that stuff more on social media sites. But currently, I don't believe there is much social media activity for the commission as a whole.
Thank you. And Mr. Barrick?
Yes, there's all the traditional ways that if people are really interested, they can come to commission meetings, they can go find and watch the whole meeting that's on video. But I think for people that really want to have a quick bite of what's going on with the commission at any given time, the social media, specifically Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, there's a couple of different things that probably not just personal pages of city commissioners, because I know they've got those, which is great, but a city commission page where things that are being decided or being talked about or dollars being spent can be tossed out there that everybody can just go straight to the Facebook page of the city commission and get caught up to date without having to work too hard to get through the website. And other than that, I think they've done generally a pretty good job.
Okay, thank you, candidates.
All right, candidates, we have another question from the audience. And first, this audience member would like to commend the City Commission on the recent updates to the parks and recreational facilities in Hayes. However, some places, such as the skate park, have not received updates in years. This individual and other skateboarders in the community would like to know if you plan to update the skate park in the future, as this could bring more modern businesses and more activities geared towards the younger generation in the community.
And I believe we're ready for Mr. Musel.
Yes.
I know we had a group come to us a few years ago wanting to raise money to make it bigger and better. Generally, that's we have a lot of organizations that actually make our parks bigger, I guess, and we have like matching funds that is always out there. I believe it's up to $10,000 a year. But it's a lot of times we try to have other people kind of have involvement. One thing that we've really struggled with lately as our parks grow is we don't have enough staffing. And, if you grow, you keep growing, then you need more staffing, which costs more money. And then, do you raise the mill levy to pay for that? And so it's just everything you do costs more money. But should we update it? Because there's people that, use that. Absolutely, we should. We just got to find the funds to be able to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
As I believe that to do this, we need job growth. We need more job growth, but since we do not have enough employees to work for the Parks Department, there is no way for us to ourselves build the skate park or update the skate park, however you want to put it. But if someone would be willing to come to the commission and say, hey, these are my ideas, this is what I would like to do. I would like to raise this money and see matching funds if possible. That'd be a great idea. It's just the problem of our workforce is not enough to build all of our parks better every, so often.
Thank you. Mr. Barrick?
Yes, well, I think, first and foremost, the city's done a good job and worked with outside agencies. I think it was crucial to be able to get parks that were more inclusive. The art park was really needed part of the community, and it's really spectacular. And I think that skate parks, as the usage goes up, there will become a need for it. It's not quite the if you build it, they will come aspect, but I think it's a very important part of the parks. And at some point in time, again, as the city grows and there's more usage and more need, there will be money that will be able to add to grow the skate park.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. And Ms. Jacobs?
I was doing very good for a while. I think Commissioner Musil hit on a great point, and that is the volunteerism in this community and the agencies in this community that reach out and want to make a difference. We have Kiwanis that work with the city for matching funds on parks. The Arc Park raised $1.683 million to do what they needed to do. I think that the skate park, I think, is an important asset. And if there's a group out there that maybe needs a sponsor, maybe there's another agency in town that would work with you on fundraising, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. So if there is somebody out there that is focused on it and wants to visit some more about it, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to work with you.
Candidates, thank you. We're going to go ahead and keeping an eye on the clock, move on to closing statements. We will begin with, again, we've circled all the way back around to Mr. Allen. So Mr. Allen, we will begin with you, and you have 60 seconds.
I thank you all for coming tonight and watching your community grow and being informed in the candidates that you will vote for. As I hope that you will vote for me, but you may not, and that is fine. But again, we must look on how we can grow our city, and I believe the best ways are housing needs, childcare needs, and finding ways to bring people to the city of Hays and retain people to the city of Hays if they come for college or working at the hospital or whatever that may be, or if they just, drive through and say, hey, this looks a nice community, and they come and they love it. But if we don't have housing needs, we can't grow our community, and we can't keep people here for the long term.
Mr. Barrick, your closing statement.
Yes, Hays is a really amazing community, and I think we just need to keep, as commissions have done in the past, looking forward and seeing what the future is what's going to be necessary in the future to grow. Housing, childcare, certainly, but one of the things that we have as an asset is the quality of life, and we need to keep adding to the things that add to the quality of life. We had a new faculty member at Fort Hays that came, and she came from Saudi Arabia, and she made a point of saying that when she interviewed here, she also interviewed for a job at the University of Louisville, much bigger school. But she came here, and she said she made more friends here in the 3 days that she interviewed, that she couldn't take a job at a higher paying, bigger university because she loved the people here and made so many friends. And I think that's a wonderful statement about our community, and it's what's going to allow us to grow and become even greater.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. And Ms. Jacobs, your closing statement, please.
I also would like to thank you all for coming tonight. It looks like we don't have a lot of people here, but this is an awfully big room, and I will tell you from witnessing these before, this is more people than I've ever seen at one of these forums, so I appreciate it, and again, appreciate everybody that worked to put it together. I've served as a commissioner for the past 5 years, and this current year as your mayor. I have worked through some very difficult issues, joined with the other commissioners in finding new ways to ensure sustainable, responsible, and planned economic growth, and shown fiscal responsibility. I'm proud of the work we as a governing body have done and would appreciate the opportunity to finish that work and that more work that we have started by serving another term as your city commissioner. This community has been very, very good to me and my family. We raised our 2 children here. My husband owned a business here, and I feel it's again time to pay it forward. It's my belief that public service is a responsibility that we share, and we should all be willing to contribute time and our best effort toward the well-being of the community in which we live, work, and play. I would appreciate your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. And your closing statement, Mr. Musil.
For me, it was pretty easy. I had a lot of friends say, why would you want to do this again after what you dealt with the pandemic? But after seeing what the community did to come together, support their commissioners and their fellow neighbors, I mean, we came through this better than most communities did, and we're still in good shape. I mean, we're still showing great growth in our sales tax, which many cities can't say that. And I think we got a great commission. I've served with some great commissioners, but I've never served with a group that's so willing to take chances and willing to move Hays forward. And I hope you will give me a chance to continue to serve for you. If you know Commissioner Jacobs knows me very well, that I wear my motions on my sleeve. Last year was a very emotional year for me, but I love this community, what it's done for my family, and I appreciate it. And no matter what will happen, I will always be involved in this community because I love this community.
Well, candidates, we really appreciate that you were willing to join us in this forum tonight, abide by our rules, and I think it went swimmingly in terms of getting through a lot of questions tonight. And thank you, of course, for being willing to run for an office on the City Commission. Please join me in thanking our candidates. So I want to remind everyone that Election Day is Tuesday, November 2nd. Early voting begins Monday, October 18th, and you can contact the Ellis County Clerk for more information. That concludes our City Commission Forum. We invite you to stay with us through a 30-minute intermission and join the USD 489 Board of Education Forum, which will begin at 7:30 p.m. We want to thank you again, candidates, for participating, and all of you who are watching both here and online, and of course for submitting your questions. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the local candidate forum featuring candidates for the USD 489 Board of Education on the campus of Fort Hays State University. Thank you to our host, Tiger Media Network, for streaming this event through the FHSU Student Government Association Facebook page and on other media channels. We would also like to thank our sponsors, other sponsors for this event, the Student Government Association, the American Democracy Project, the Department of Political Science, the Chamber in Hays, Kansas, and the Docking Institute of Public Affairs. My name is Carl Miller. I'm an associate professor and chair of the Department of Philosophy at Fort Hays. My co-moderator this evening, the real brains of this operation, is Ella Burrows. She's a freshman studying political science from Satanta, Kansas. Our steely-eyed timekeeper is Caden Sanders. He's also a freshman, and he's studying something called digital media and journalism. He's on the Student Government Association. We have with us tonight 6 candidates for the USD 489 Board of Education, seated alphabetically from left to right: Ken Brooks, Casey Herman, Kathy Hopkins, Kurt Vinar, Thomas Wassinger, and Megan Zampiri-Lilpom. Please note that there is one additional candidate on the ballot, Nushelle Chance, but as Nushelle Chance no longer resides in the community, she is not actually on this debate. Welcome to all of you candidates. Thank you for being here at this forum. The forum format will be as follows. Each candidate will make a stimulating 60-second opening statement. In that statement, we ask first that the candidates address why they are running for a position on the Board of Education, and second, tell us what skills and experiences they have that they would bring to the board. Then we will proceed to the questions. We will begin with a few questions prepared by the committee that planned this forum. Following these, we will ask questions submitted by the audience and community members. We have accepted questions online in advance, and we will accept questions from those here in attendance tonight, as well as from those viewing online. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. If a specific candidate is named in a response from one of the other candidates, the named candidate will be given an opportunity to make a 30-second rebuttal. We encourage questions from the audience. Please submit your questions in the comments section of the live stream if you're watching online, or write your questions on one of the cards handed out this evening if you were with us in person. About 20 minutes or so into the forum, we will begin collecting questions from the audience. Please pass your cards to the end of the row, and one of our volunteers will swoop by and pick them up. We will get to as many questions from the audience as time allows. Each candidate will then have 60 seconds to make a closing statement. We encourage and appreciate civility and a healthy, robust discussion. In order to move through as many questions as possible, we ask that members of the audience please respectfully refrain from applauding, cheering, jeering, demonstrating, rioting, or anything else of that sort during the forum. Candidates, we will begin opening statements in alphabetical order. Then for each new question, we will rotate to the next candidate in line to answer that question first. Mr. Brooks, we will begin with your opening statement. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I just want to say, my name is Ken Brooks, and I moved here to Hays about 14 years ago, and to be a safety professional for insurance planning, and a big part of why I moved here was because they gave us a tour of the school, and I was more than impressed with the school system here. And over the last about a decade, I've been a single dad raising my 3 girls in these schools, and I've seen all sorts of great things come from being here in Hays. And so I'm running so that I can make some more positive changes here at the Hays School District, but also to bring some amount of unity to the board. And I think that I have a good ability to do that, and I'm excited for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Well, hello, my name is Casey Herman, and the biggest reason I ran for the board is last year there was a lot of lack of representation and the school board and other Hayes governmental agencies. And so April came along, I just threw my name in there and started going to board meetings, and just as going to these meetings, by the way, next board meeting, you're going to hear me of this from a lot. Next board meeting is 25th. I want everybody to go. Please go. It is just pretty ridiculous, and I'm just so glad I threw my name in the hat to run for the school board. I also have 3 girls, and you're doing it yourself. I don't know how you do that. Big props to you. I also want to say that I went to Gorham grade school with combined classes. I went to Russell Middle School, and I went to Hayes High School. So a lot of experiences of how schools are ran and everything. So thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins, you're next.
Hello, Kathy Hopkins. I'm running for a seat on the Board of Education in order to take my passion for this community to the next level. That means participating in the education of our youth, and I believe my experience has enabled me to fill this role. It includes being a parent and a grandparent, a small business owner, an employee of the Hayes Chamber, working for an organization with international outreach, and spending nearly a decade training and supervising administrative staff at a law firm while simultaneously supporting the attorneys in my office. These roles have equipped me with the life and people skills needed to serve, and I'm eager to put them to use. I had a wonderful mentor in my last position who taught me that zeal without wisdom can be counterproductive. Patience is key. So is being quick to listen and slow to speak, but not being afraid to use my voice when it's needed. Timing is very important, as sometimes speaking the right thing at the wrong time can be counterproductive. It's my belief and hope that I can apply these traits to the board and see positive results. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vinar, you have 60 seconds.
Good evening. I am 55 years old. My name is Kurt Viner. I live in the Hayes School District now for 33 years. I taught ag science for 31 at Hayes High. I now own a lawn spray business as well as farm southwest of Antonino. I've been married for 23 years to my wife, Mariella. She is a medical investigator for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. So for the last 2 years, that means COVID. Together we have 5 children. My son Conrad just graduated from Fort Hays State University with a major in accounting and a minor in criminal justice. And his new bride, Haley, is now at her first year of teaching in Lincoln. Colton's a sophomore at K-State, focusing on ag engineering. Cyrus is a junior at Hayes High. I have Lizzie, an 8th grader at the middle school, and I have Cannon, a 3rd grader at Wilson, so I have all the schools covered. My main reason for running is to make sure our educational system at USD 49 is to provide the best education to our students that possibly can. All my decisions that I will make while serving on the board will be based on 2 principles. First, what is best for the 300 students of USD 49, and second, the efficient and most productive use of our school funds.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lussinger, you have 60 seconds.
Push this thing down, right? I decided to run for the school board for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I believe that it's important to have some diversity on the school board in terms of experiences and in terms of ideas. Second, I want to help pass a school bond, and one that is reasonable in scope and cost and duration. And I think in this regard, I have something unique to offer that the other candidates don't. After graduating from Notre Dame and Notre Dame Law School, I moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked for 9 years. I worked mostly on the Hill. I worked as a chief of staff of a United States senator, and I spent time around the country in various campaigns for governors, senators, and congressional people. In 1985, I moved back to Hayes to take over the family business. And I am proud to say that at this point, the business has been in operation for 104 years continuously with one family. I have served a term on the Ellis County Commission. I also served on the Ellis County Space Needs Committee, which developed the plans for its bond and its building improvement projects. So I think that I bring a little something different to the table, and look forward to using that. Bye. Yeah, done.
Thank you. Sam Berry Lilpop, you're up next. Yes. I said Miss instead of Megan, I'm sorry. So.
I am a Hayes High parent. I'm running for I care about these kids. I care about these teachers. I'm tired of seeing teachers do double duty as fundraising managers. I would like to see their classroom support restored. I would like to see the kids be safe and an appropriate number of them in each room. The district already has amazing things going for it. Our teachers are brilliant. We have 2 blue ribbon elementary schools. But that means we can get better. I am experienced in statewide advocacy as well as board work, and I'm pretty good at it. I run our state professional organization. That's it, I guess. My time was mostly muted.
Thank you all for your opening statements. We'll now commence with our probing questions. The first one has the provocative title of Difficult Decisions. The board is frequently faced with making difficult decisions. If you are elected as a board member and you disagree with the decision that the board makes, how would you respond? Mr. Herman, we'll begin with you.
Well, that's easy. I currently disagree with the board right now on many things. So I have often told them what I thought, and they're not a fan of me at all. Basically, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm kind of a self-made guy here, and my wife's self-made as well. Very independent. No one owns me. I'm not. You will hear from me. I will let you know. So that's, yeah, you'll hear from me.
All right. Ms. Hopkins?
Question.
Sure. The board is frequently faced with making difficult decisions. If you were elected as a board member and you disagree with the decision that the board makes, how would you respond?
I think the appropriate way after, obviously once you're in the midst of it and it happens, that's the way it goes, but then to be able to come back around and have more discussion to see if you could honestly change opinions and work toward a different goal that might work better for everybody. That would be my response.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vinar?
Difficult decisions, again, when I vote, I'm going to vote on the 2 principles that I stated earlier. What's best for kids, and is it efficient use of USD 489 money? If the vote doesn't go my way, that's called democracy, and that's called the parliamentary procedure, and that's the way it is. And if you're going to be a bad sport about it, you're in the wrong place. But, 4 people decided that was the way it should be, and so I think you should be grown up, and that's the way you move on. If it comes up again, or there could be more education to provide a different view, then I think you do go that way. I would, hopefully there's 7 people on that board that are professional and act like that.
Thank you. Mr. Wassinger?
One of the questions...
Can you push your button?
Sorry. One of the questions that was raised, one of the written questions, that was how do you think that unity is important and all that kind of stuff. I think there's nothing more important than robust disagreement and debate on a board. And I think you let it all out in that forum. You use your best arguments to persuade. And at the end of the day, if you lose, then you move on and you try later to persuade, or you just accept it. You're never going to get everything you want. I understand that. I've been in politics long enough to understand that. But I think the civility is a big part of the debate and how you ought to treat people and how you ought to react at the end of the day.
Thank you. Ms. Embry-Lilpop?
I think that engaging those quieter or minority voices is imperative in coming to fair decisions that speak to the needs of the largest group. We do have to make big and difficult decisions on a regular basis, and new information should allow us to change our minds following those directions, making sure that people are being listened to. Often, in order to get buy-in from a smaller group, you do need to give them something back. And I'm skilled in negotiations, so I hope that I'm given the chance to exercise those skills.
Thank you, candidates. Our second question this evening comes.
You certainly may.
I'm sorry.
No, please do.
All right. As a safety professional, I consult with companies all the time that, believe it or not, don't want to participate with safety. And so I run into that where I have disagreements. And over the course of my career, I've gotten to be able to show them the reasons why, and then they have that choice whether they agree or disagree with me. And when it comes to the board, it's the same way. You know, I'll listen to what they have to say, because if they're disagreeing with what I feel, maybe there's something I'm missing. So I'll listen to that and at the same time try to convince them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Our second question this evening will be in regards to school bonds. How would you assess the facilities needs in the district? What is your position on pursuing a school bond to improve or replace facilities? And Ms. Hopkins will speak first on this question.
Thanks a lot. On the bond issue, I know we've brought in a group that has assessed the situation and looked through everything. My hope is that's been done very well. I do personally want to do more personal viewing of the buildings themselves, just to get an idea of personally what's going on. As far as the bond issue, I believe we've had 2 failed in recent years. So I think it's very important that we're looking at that failure and making sure we're not repeating the same thing over and over again. If it's failed, there was a reason it failed, so we need to look at that and re-examine the approach. So my hope is that we can work for a very sound financial and time frame bond that will meet the needs that the district has.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Mr. Viner?
The needs is very evident. I taught there for 31 years. Another 31 years we'll be teaching intense because it's fallen down. You don't have to go very far. We did a work session board meeting at Wilson, and there was bathrooms that weren't working that were covered with trash bags. And then the principal told us if there's a tornado, good luck, because the storm shelter was covered with looked like a greenhouse covering. So, you know, the needs is, I think, very evident. You don't have to go very far. Look at many buildings that are very old. The newest one's Hayes High, and that's, you know, over 40 years old. The second part of your question is how to pass it. I have 3 points. First of all, you better trust the school board that's going to be spending the money and pushing it, and they need to be a team. The good news is the Excellence K-12 survey that was conducted showed that 68% were in favor of passing a bond issue. It didn't say how much or what for, but at least there's that. And then we need to learn from our past, the $94 million bond issue in 2016 that didn't pass, and the $78.5 that didn't pass in 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Viner. Mr. Wassinger?
There's no question. Sorry. There's no question that the schools need to be updated. That's never been the issue, and I don't think there's, I think there's support in this community for bonds. I've proved it in the past with the city, with the county. The trick is finding the right balance, the total cost to do what you want to do, making sure that the plan has turned over, it has turned over every rock, and so that when you go to the community, you can absolutely tell them that we've done everything we can to come up with the best plan possible. I think the reasons why the last bond failed were pretty obvious to me, and I've written about it. They're too costly, too long, and didn't follow the bond, or didn't follow the survey that was funded at the time. But I believe that we can get one done, and that's one of the reasons why I said I wanted to run.
Thank you, Mr. Wassinger. Ms. Sampieri-Lopop?
That was perfect. Thank you. So how do we assess the future needs of this community? We look at what our city commission has been talking about. What do we want Hayes to look like in 20 years? What our current mayor mentioned, having 500 students stay every year. That is the kind of volume that we're speaking of. We know that the buildings need to be bigger. We know that we have some opportunities for partnerships in the future that can build it. But a couple of people up here have touched on some things, but it does come down to transparency in the process and then trust in the people to get the work done. I've been a part of groups that got that work done. The work is open to the public, and you can see some of that. I think that you can trust me to carry that through in this role as well.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
Yes, I went last night to the facilities bond meeting, and they did a great job of presenting things that maybe we can do and things that have been done for other schools, and we definitely need it. You know, if I'd gotten that tour that I got 14 years ago today, I can't 100% say that I'd move to Hayes based solely on that. I love our schools. I want our schools, the facilities to be safe. I want them to be good facilities, and that's going to take passing a bond. We heard our city commission candidates all talk about how that is important to Hayes. So we're not talking just for helping the school board, it's helping our community. And it's going to take, like others have said, it's going to take being open and honest about it, and we're going to need to really sell it to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Oh, so sorry. Mr. Herman.
Well, I'm going to jump to the end of the question and passing the bond, and I'm going to also name drop my AP government teacher in high school, Sue Boldra, and I remember there was a bond going on then. She goes, "This won't pass. There's a blank check in here. They got so much money that they don't have attached to, and you don't know where it's going." Didn't pass. And bond came around again, like 17, I think Viner said, and I saw it right there. Blank checks in the bond. Didn't pass. 19, saw it again. Blank checks didn't pass. These bonds are not going to pass with blank checks in them. We got to have every cent accounted for, and these big bonds to build a new high school and pay big contractors, big architects money, that's not how this is going to go. We need to keep our work local. We need to keep Western Kansas. We need to give money to Western Kansas, not Kansas City, not Wichita, not even Salina. We need to keep everything here, and we need to do shop local. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Herman.
For our next question, it's on the COVID issue. Do you think that US 489 is doing enough to address COVID-19 issues, or are there any changes that you would advocate? Mr. Viner, I believe you're first.
Well, it's a good thing my wife does COVID. I think USD 49 is doing a good job right now. We haven't gone to the mask thing, which I greatly appreciate. I think all our COVID decisions should be made on a local decision with our local resources, and we do the best we can. As a teacher that was retiring on the year that we canceled school, I can tell you nothing educationally happened when we send kids home. So the worst case scenario, I think put a mask on before you don't let my kids be educated, if that's where it comes to. The teachers I've talked to, kids have lost a half year of education, and that's not a good thing. I think another thing that we need to be concerned about is the mental health aspect of COVID and what it's done to people. My wife and I were talking. I can tell you I know 2 people that have committed suicide. One's a former student of mine that happened 2 months ago, and I know 2 that died of COVID, and one of them was my brother 2 months ago. So, the mental health, I think, is just as scary as the COVID stuff, if the COVID is scary.
Thank you. Mr. Watzinger?
Oh, there you go. You started running it before. Oh, sorry. Now you. Okay. The system they have in place, the meetings with Kennedy, Jason Kennedy, and the teachers and the staff and everything, I think that communication, that effort among them is working well right now. I don't see any pushback from anybody. I don't see anything, screaming, yelling about anybody. I think we just keep going in that way until we reach some other time when, or maybe a point in the distant future when things might change. But I think, for the most part, I think we need to give kudos to the people who are doing it, and I don't have any particular problem with the COVID mitigation plan that they have in place.
Thank you. Mrs. Ampere-Leopold?
I think the COVID mitigation plan that's in place is respectful of the experts, but it's also very conscious of the goal of keeping the kids in the classrooms. When we talk about those mitigations, we're talking about the definition of a close contact, and the school board didn't make that definition. When someone is positive, people have to go home. And if we have the numbers go up, that's not a decision that the school is making there. It's the school's decision then to keep the kids in the classroom. Because as Mr. Viner said, we are losing education time when they are on a screen. And that is the truth of the matter.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
As far as the COVID plan goes, the mitigation plan that the school district adopted, they did a great job of seeking advice and putting this plan together. And they answered every question anybody could possibly have. And I think they've done a good job of keeping our schools open. As was said, you know, last year we lost time for education. And it affected my daughters greatly. I had a senior last year that honestly lost out on scholarships because schools weren't having competitions. This year they've done a terrific job of the way they put this plan together. If you've read through it, they're sticking by the plan, and they've just thought through everything. And like I said, the people they got the advice from, they did terrific.
Thank you. Mr. Herman?
Well, I'm just going to get right to it. I think the plan's a joke. If you go look at other schools, they have 2.5%, 10% levels, and if a school has a lot of COVID in one school, they do masks or whatever. In that school, we do a whole district, and we do 1%. And our level 1 doesn't have a number attached to it. So, and then when they started doing this, they gave numbers. They would text us numbers. Now they don't even text us numbers. So when are we going to get to level 1 here? What number do we have to get to? They won't tell us. They're not going to let us know. And then we even had Ellis County Health Department even told the board that all he can do is quarantine. He doesn't tell them what on masks, and the board doesn't even care, doesn't even believe it. And also, I think here, kind of lost my train of thought, so I'll just go. I believe it's parental choice. If you're sick, stay home, and that's all I got. Thanks.
Ms. Hopkins?
Hi. Tough issue, obviously. I do believe in parental choice 100% across the board when it comes to their children's health. Casey talked about our county health officer, and one of the things he said in the September work session to the board and those present was that masking and quarantining are political, and they were doing what they were comfortable with. So yes, education is very important. Being in the classroom is very important. I don't believe we can take away rights and say that's why we do it. I believe it should stay with the parents when it comes to their children's health and what they believe is best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question will be from an audience member, and it reads, transparency has been an important issue in governing bodies and how governing bodies are viewed and potentially for support of board decisions. What is your approach to transparency by the Board of Education? This question will first go to Mr. Wassinger.
Transparency. I think the board's decisions, their operations are made in public. They have, they do have executive sessions, but for the most part, I think the decisions are transparent. I think the problem is that people just don't agree with them, so they somehow want to believe that they're not transparent. One of the things that I think would be helpful is if there were some more, I don't want to say, there was information from the school board that would get out more. One of the conversations I had quick last night was with somebody. They said, well, you know, we have all these meetings. I said, nobody ever knew about them because you don't have any communication with the public. So I don't have a really good answer for it, but anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wassinger. Ms. Sampieri-Lopok?
I think that the Board of Education has done a good job of opening up their meetings. There is a live YouTube stream, and that is almost immediately posted for recording afterwards. That technology exists now, and I think it's a great tool that's being used effectively. I think there are some other meetings. Perhaps we could have some more communication out about discussion topics or primary needs that are being discussed. But if business is not being discussed or completed, then that record is not there. So I think that we can increase levels of communication and make that open to parents. I think we can do that via listservs and different ways that people can enjoy.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
In the last few months, as I started attending the meetings regularly, the board meetings, I'll be honest, I feel they do a good job about being transparent. I don't see that many things are done behind scenes because they're trying to follow all the laws. This current board that we have seems to be doing that fairly well. In all the meetings that I've watched or attended, there's probably been one incident where I felt like maybe something happened that wasn't transparent, but I think they do a good job of that. And I think that if I'm elected to be on the board, that's how I'll be. I live a life where I pretty much, if you know me at all, you know everything about me. I live a pretty open life, and I think that's how we need to do it on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Herman?
Well, I'm just going to let everybody know, if you haven't figured out by now, you're getting direct answers from me. Transparency on this board, it's a joke. Big joke. I've been going to meetings for a long time here. At some point, they changed work sessions, the time, and they don't record them no more. So, yeah, we got a work session November 8th. Try to go to it. See if you can go to that one. Then we had a special session that they issued 3 minutes before the legally required to in the middle of the day. Yeah, try to go to that one too. Alan keeps pulling stuff out of consent agenda to talk about, and the rest of the board hates it. They hate actually having to do their job. Minutes are not recorded correctly. Alan Parkey, once again, he has to always have them correct the minutes and stuff like that. And then we also have the phone a friend embarrassment for the board president. This is not a good board we have right now. It has not been ran correctly, it is not transparent, and it needs a lot of help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Ms. Hopkins?
Earlier, Mr. Wassinger commented about being that person who wants that robust discussion, everything out in the open, and I think that is so very important, so that no matter what's happening in that meeting, there is a lot of discussion about everything on the agenda. And I don't believe we're seeing a lot of that at this time by any means. I think it's really important that nobody is afraid to speak. There has to be discussion in order for actual agreement to happen or disagreement, not just motions being passed, but there's real discussion, speaking very openly, and really just acknowledging so that everybody has a voice and is willing to put it forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Mr. Viner?
Transparency with our school board, I think, has room for improvement. The one that really bothers me is we used to have these work sessions where they would just go discuss things. Now they are board meetings, so we're having 2 board meetings a month instead of 1. The work session component of Tuesdays, which I attended at Wilson, lasted 10 minutes while we looked at the secure office, and the rest was a board meeting. They're not work sessions, they're board meetings, and the only thing that the public's going to know is one reporter that was in that room and the minutes that are on the doc link on the website Other than that, you're going to get no dialogue. That's not videotaped, it's not covered, and it's not released to you. So the discussion and things that are passed are happening between 11:30 and 12:30 in the middle of the day when there's nobody in attendance. And I wrote down who was there, and I counted 2 guests out of the attendance that was there. So not very transparent in my view.
Thank you, Mr. Viner.
Next question. What do you think about the current 5-year capital outlay plan? Mr. Imperi, Lopop?
So the current 5-year capital outlay plan, I took a look at some of the plans for that spending in the last minutes of the board. And I think that it's trying to take care of some of that deferred maintenance, trying to cover the safety issues of the buildings. And but I know that it's not going to be enough. It's not going to cover all of the needs of all of the buildings. And we need to pass a bond as soon as we possibly can. The students deserve it. The children in this community deserve it. And the teachers deserve not to have donors choose fundraisers for their furniture. So I hope to see that improve, but I think that as long as it goes this way, it's going to continue to be 5 years at a time, little bits here and there. I hope not.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
All right. When years ago, when I first moved to Hayes, my company actually did the insurance for the school district, and so I worked with them as a safety consultant, and there were so many needs that weren't getting done. In this 5-year capital outlay plan, they've actually started doing it, and we're talking years ago that I saw these things, and now they're being improved on and being fixed and finally being taken care of, and I think we're moving forward on that. I think that, as was said, that we're going to run out. There's not going to be enough to take care of everything, and so that's why we need to make sure we're looking forward and moving forward on getting this bond taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Herman?
Well, straight answer as usual. I have not looked at this plan yet, so but I guarantee you I got a friend that will let me know about it. I am only one man. I can only do so much. I have a lot of support. I have an accountant and everything like that. I will take a look at this, and I'll make sure that everything is taken care of. I was just talking to a school nurse the other day, trying to tweak opinions about things and everything, and that's how I learn. I mean, there's only so many things you can learn. Oh man, lost my train of thought again. I hate when that happens. But there's only so many things you can come across and everything. So you have to get with people and learn things like this. So I will have to take a look at this plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins?
Well, I have to admit, too, that I haven't seen that, but it's wonderful to know that we have that going forth. Obviously, it's not going to cover everything. And part of the big question mark of the bond issue is, are we carefully building into it the future maintenance of whatever does happen, so this doesn't happen again? Because I think that's the huge part of it all, is making sure we don't put ourselves in a position that in 10 years, the buildings we just built or whatever's just been done is not being taken care of. So there's no way we can go back 20 years and make that happen in 5, but going forward, it's extremely important to make sure we're taking care of what we do have.
Thank you. Mr. Viner?
The 5-year capital outlay plan, I think, is the best we can do, trying to keep what we have functioning. And it's totally dependent upon money that comes in each year from the state. So you're dependent upon what you have to spend to keep it afloat, more or less. It goes back to, we have to have a bond issue if we're going to get ahead, because we're going to keep sinking, slower and slower. I would also, and I also appreciate the USD 49 Foundation, who it kind of came out to be because of bond issues not passing. They are going to finish their last secure opening to all our schools. I've been informed that something went down in Great Bend this week that was pretty nerve-wracking, and thank goodness we're ahead of that game where we're going to have secure entrances and that deal. Shameless plug, I did get a a message today that tickets are selling fast on the fundraiser that's happening soon.
Thank you. Mr. Wassinger?
There's 8 meals dedicated to the school each year for capital outlay. And part of the problem, and this is part of the problem with the bond and why it failed, is the school board, there was a lack of trust in terms of what the school board was using that capital outlay for. I don't know what's on it right now. I do know they've made a conscientious effort to try to stick to a plan, prioritize repairs and stuff like that. That's great. But one of the things that you hear from time to time is there are other things that were coming out of the capital A budget that don't allow for the maximum use of that budget. Even the last bond, one of the complaints I had was, and I told this to them at the time, was, you take 2 mills out of the capital outlay budget and to help pay for the bond. Well, then you just reduce the capital outlay budget again, and now you can't keep up with your repairs. So I think there needs to be a parallel, on the next bond, it has to be parallel with the capital outlay budget and the bond to maximize efficiencies. Okay, sorry.
Our next question is, technology and physical needs for schools have increased exponentially over the last 10 to 15 years and will certainly continue into the future. How do you account for this when planning a bond for schools that will need to remain functional for 50 years or more? Mr. Brooks.
All right, I'm going to give you a little bit about my opinion about the facilities bond meeting last night. They actually showed where they've taken schools and made them more functioning physically and with all the modern technology. They took Salina's school that looked like a prison and made it into a beautiful open school that really was made for learning. And it's going to be there for, as you said, 50 years. To be honest with you, if we've got a building for 50 years, we're going to have to look at updating it anyhow. That's what we need at our high school. But the truth is that, this bond is looking at all of those areas and looking at ways to improve our schools so that they'll be sustainable and that they will be functional schools for our kids in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Herman?
Well, I love technology in our schools. That's one of the reasons why I chose O'Laughlin. They had, I can't remember what the name is, but there was kind of the projector system they used to teach their kids. And so I do love that. But the biggest question I got with this is, in the bond, what kind of money are they allocating towards staff? Right now, USD 49 has 3 tech support guys. They have like 500 tickets right now. And if you're not a classroom or administrator, you're not getting your computer fixed. So are we going to be hiring more people here to take care of all this equipment and this technology? And is this technology going to be easily replaceable? Is it going to be rugged? Is it going to be robust? These are a lot of questions we have to figure out in this bond. And also, we need more than 3 tech people right now. Like tomorrow, it would be great to hire a few more. So thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins?
Obviously, we do have to look forward. I don't have any clue what technology is going to look like in 50 years, considering we didn't have cell phones when I was not less than 50 years ago. So the technology, like Casey mentioned, because I've talked to several teachers, and they're having to use personal hotspots just to be able to get their computers working because the Wi-Fi is not working. So the infrastructure to make sure now that we can at least build out so that that technology is functioning daily, and like Casey had said, to make sure we have the staff to do that, to make sure we're on top of everything. So it's very important that it's a part of the whole plan, for sure.
Thank you. Mr. Viner?
Technology needs, I think the hard structures need to be flexible so you can change with technology, 50 years down the road. If you've got brick and mortar and it can't be adjusted, then you have those issues. I think a lot of the new designs, even in the past bond issues, had flexible classrooms where things were moving, so that would work. I think that's also would be part of DLR's deal, too, to sell a bond issue with facilities that address that issue. And I think that's the school board's responsibility to make sure that it does happen. I would resound on some earlier comments. Technology's great, and we can have more, but when it doesn't work, it really doesn't make much difference. And you want to talk about frustrated parents, that gets me excited when the keyboard doesn't work or they can't, and it takes weeks. And I think there ought to be a technology person in every school. There's not. I taught, when you use technology to teach with and it doesn't work, that is a frustrating deal, and then everybody loses. So if you don't have it, you can't keep going. So I am a proponent of we need technology people.
Thank you. Mr. Wassinger?
I want to return to the financial aspect of this technology, the one-to-one technology. As I understand it, the cost for computers and things like that come out of out of the capital outlay budget, the 600, whatever thousand, how many thousands they spend every year. The problem with that then is you have this tension now of using this much for technology, then we reduce the amount that's available for repairs and maintenance, which puts pressure on that fund for that. And then I had one question. One guy asked me whether or not they were still paying salaries out of the capital outlay budget. It should absolutely not happen. And we can't do that and wonder why we can't catch up. So again, the financial aspect of it is critical, and particularly when you're talking about a bond again. You have to somehow run these parallel and decide and make sure that, you know, if we pass a bond, that will catch us up to some degree in certain areas. But we got to make sure that we don't run into the same problem we're in now, 10 years from now, if we pass a bond with the capital outlay budget.
Thank you. Ms. Dampieri-Lilpop?
Technology is really important. Our kids have to learn how to function in this society. We need to teach them how to write emails. We can't teach them how to type if they don't have keyboards. We do definitely need to integrate the technology replacement schedule into the yearly plan. If it's through capital outlay, great. If it's through future planning and future rebudgeting, then also important. But the thing about technology is that people make it work. So if you don't have the support at each school, if you don't have the training for the classroom teacher that's going to allow them to use those resources and leverage those assets, then we're not going to have useful tools into the classrooms. And I'd like to see those return. The classroom support in the teacher education avenue is something that has been cut and should be restored as well.
Thank you.
These next two questions I'm combining, they're from the audience. They're both about staff shortages and employee turnover. And do you as a board member have any thoughts on what we can do, if anything, about addressing staff shortages, staff turnover, employees? Mr. Herman.
Well, I'm told from people inside the school that the pay raises for teachers that are here for extended times are very, very low. And I'm also told that teachers teach here 1 or 2 years and then go somewhere else. So, I mean, it kind of makes space. What is going on here? Is there some sort of politics played in the school system that we need to get rid of? Or are we paying our teachers enough? Are they buying too many supplies? Or maybe it is just that the fact that they have to, every kid has a tablet or a laptop, and when things go down, there's just no help there. So definitely need to take a look into it. It's very concerning. I have been talking to teachers about it, and this is something that I definitely want to keep. I want good teachers from Hays, from Fort Hays, from Eastern Kansas, from Western Kansas. I want them here, and I want them to stay. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins?
Honestly, I think we have to look at the overall budget for all of staff, administrators on down, and make sure it's all making sense, that the salaries being paid from the top down are conducive to keeping teachers in the classrooms and drawing teachers. That whole budget, obviously we're always having to look at dollars, so is it being spread out correctly so that we can use it as best possible? And like Casey said, I mean, we want teachers to stay. We love our community, and whatever it takes to make that happen. But it's a community issue. So I feel like everybody has to bring their ideas. When we have problems, 7 people can't solve them. The entire community has to come together, throw out the ideas, and see where we can come in and make things different. Thank you. Mr.
Staff, staff shortages. I think our goal should be hire the best teachers we can get. I'm a proponent of we need to bring in as many student teachers as we can. That's a 3-month trial. Sell them on Hayes USD 49 while they're teaching. Let them know our kids. We have wonderful students. But a 3-month trial run's a lot better than a 1-hour interview. The gal that replaced me would never have came to Hayes if it wouldn't have been for the student teaching opportunity and her, getting to be intertwined with our community. Another one would be a financial stipend reward for early retirement so that we can interview and grab the best that's available if you start interviewing in January instead of in June, and hopefully there's somebody still there. That was a proponent that I spoke about when I ran for the opening, and evidently it's now part of the contract, so I'm glad that they used that idea. I also think that young teachers need older peers within the building to help chaperone them, to go with questions, concerns, how do we deal with that? I think when you're a young teacher and you're on your own, that's a tough struggle. The first couple of years is tough.
Thank you. Mr. Lessinger?
I don't know that I have a good answer for that, quite frankly. I'm not even sure what kind of staff shortages they're talking about, whether it be teachers or support staff or paras or whatever, counselors. But I think my role as a school board member, if I get elected, I need to sit down with the teachers and the administrators and say, okay, what is it you think that could help? And go from there. But as far as any particular great idea at this stage of the game, I simply don't have one. I'm not familiar enough with it.
Ms. Imperi-Lear?
I do think that in my first year, listening to teachers is going to be the most important thing. But so far, what I'm hearing from them is that they're putting $500 of their own money so far this year in their classrooms. It's October. We have, I mentioned this before, we have 3 active fundraisers right now on Donors Choose. They're all for books. The library budgets for each school are $2,500. For the year, the price to pay for the stadium is $2,500 for 7 football games each. That to me says that the teachers are not receiving the classroom support that they need, including the actual items that they need in the classroom. And if we support that and we don't make their job a struggle every day, we might have a shot at keeping the best ones.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
So I recently looked up on the USD 489 website, and the pay scale is there for our teachers. And it's low. And the difference between that new hire and the highest amount they can make is not a big difference. And so we need to ask, are we paying our teachers well enough? Where can we get the funds to change that? But at the same time, all of our teachers are great about seeking advancement as far as in their education. Many of our teachers have masters. They have multiple certifications. We need to have some sort of a bonus program as they achieve those certifications, as they achieve that master's, instead of just accepting that they're going to get a low pay no matter how hard they're working towards advancing. And I'll be honest, I'm not a financial guy. I'm going to learn what we can this year and see what we can do to help the teachers stay and want to stay here in Hayes.
Thank you.
The use of Native American mascots has been criticized as perpetuating harmful stereotypes. What is your opinion regarding the use of these mascots by public schools? Ms. Hopkins.
I honestly believe they were put in place to honor, and I don't believe that's ever changed.
Mr. Viner?
The mascot, the Indians, is a warrior. I think it's, again, a social status of something that happened that was great. I don't have any issues. I'm sure that's where that question's critiqued too. I don't think there's any negativity about a falcon, so it must be the Indian. And I know it was a couple years ago there was a big to-do about changing its name, but you know, it is what it is, and I have no qualms with being an Indian.
Thank you. Mr. Wassinger?
I think the Indian name is pretty generic. I'm not sure how that's offensive to anybody, but so I don't have an issue with the mascot, for instance, for Hayes High, or the name. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Dampieri Lilpop?
I wish that we could name some things that we learned about Native American populations that previously occupied this space, instead of having a picture of a tribe that may or may not have been here. I think it would be more honorific. I think that it would be kinder, generally, and I think that our students would benefit more from that. But I understand the cost of changing something that big, that's so endemic, and I would let the community lead that conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
If that's a conversation the community wants to have, I'd be open to listen, but I'm with most here that the Indian in the past has always been a warrior for this school and it's seen as such, and so I'd see no reason to change it unless there's just a big uproar.
Thank you. Mr. Herman?
I would argue that people want to change these mascots, and especially in the state of Kansas. Let's change the name of the Let's change the name of the state first, because if you remember, Kansas is named after the Kansan Indians, so we have that problem as well. And it is definitely a big honor to have a team named after something of you. Like, if I'm pretty full German, so if they named a team some Oktoberfestgians or something like that, that'd be great, you know. But Indians is just an excellent mascot name. Yeah, great all Indian tribes, great people, feared and respected, peaceful people. And I was on the football team. I made sure the bench was warm there, and it was great when they do I can't remember if we called it the chop or whatever, but it was just, yeah, it's just a great mascot, and do not change it, or don't change the state of Kansas, because I love Kansas too.
Thank you.
We've now reached the nearly 8:30, so we're going to move now to our closing statements. We had a number of other questions we wish we could have gotten to. So you'll have 60 seconds for your closing statements. Mr. Viner, I believe you're up first.
I would like to say thank you to Fort Hays State for hosting this, along with the other organizations that were part of this school forum. If elected, I promise the voters that I will spend the time and energy that is needed to be informed about the topics that are affecting our school district. I would also like to inform the voters of USD 49 that I have and will have skin in the game. I have a third grader, and he's in school for another 9 years, so I have connections of being a parent in our school system. My decisions while serving on the school board will first be based upon what is best for our 3,000 students and what is financially responsible. Common sense would tell us that we have farmers serving on the Ellis County Conservation Board. We have doctors serving on our hospital boards. Why wouldn't we have a highly qualified retired educator on our school board of education? Please vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wassinger?
For my closing, I want to touch upon something I said earlier in my opening, actually. I think, actually, that the most critical question facing the voters in this school board election is what the answer to the question is, what kind of school board do you want to have? And do you want to have a balanced board that has diversity of opinion and ideas and experience, or do you want to have something else? I believe that the school board ought to reflect, the membership of the school board ought to reflect the community it serves. So I'm just asking that all the voters out there ponder this question seriously, because the answer they give to it is going to impact significantly the type of policies that the board decides on, the way they spend their money, and actually the kind of bond that gets presented to this school next year or to the public next year is going to be affected as well. So for me, I would just encourage the vote for diversity.
Thank you. Ms. Zampieri-Lilpop.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you again for the opportunity here, and I thank you all for coming to this forum. I hope it's clear that my first priority will be the kids, and our best way to those kids are the teachers that we hire and support. My support for those teachers will be good and great. I am good at finance, I'm good at money, and I hope that you can support me as a member of your school board as we move forward to grow Hayes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
I'd also like to thank you for this opportunity and all the hard work that you did setting this up. As we close, I do just want to tell you how much I care about the students here, the teachers, the administrators, our city as a whole, and I want to do what's best for them. All my decision making is going to be asking that question: what is best for the people here? And you know, I'm willing to work hard, and whether that means compromising or fighting for what this city needs to improve and to be better. Hey, and I also want to say thanks. You know, I gave the impression I have been a single dad for most of the last decade, but I have a beautiful wife these days, and she's supporting me, and she wants me to go forward with this. So, thank you.
Probably a good idea that you mentioned that. Yeah. Mr. Herman?
Every time I do something with the school board, like for tonight, I learn things, and I'm so glad that I went to an event or a board meeting or something like that. Remember the 25th, a regular board meeting at 6:30 at 12th Street Auditorium, be there. So yeah, I have 3 kids, and the biggest thing I want to accomplish here is how many kids are living at home with their mom after high school. I want strong, independent kids leaving high school that can just go out there and be their own people. They don't have to come home and live with their parents and stuff like that. I was basically on my own and kind of sophomore, junior year in high school, getting rides and stuff like that, and it's tough, and I want people to just be strong kids that come out of our school system, and I think it's totally possible here in Hayes. We have an excellent community, and we have excellent schools and teachers too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hopkins, you have the final word.
Thank you, and I want to say thank you to Ella. She worked hard to keep me connected here. We had some email address issues. I really appreciated her. From what I've experienced in attending Board of Education meetings over the past few months and talking with people, it seems that many do not feel as if they're being heard. They feel as if their voices don't matter to those who should be listening. I'm running on the idea that our values and voices do matter, and I believe they should absolutely be taken into account with every decision that is made. We are Americans, and we cherish our rights and freedoms as citizens in this great country, this state, and the city of Hayes. I do not say that to be political, because to me this is not about politics. Rather, it's about being involved and making sure our government runs the way it was intended to. Whether I'm elected to one of the open seats or not, I'm in this for the long run. We must all be present in our education system as well as the workings of our city and county. Being proactive in our local communities is how we actually bring about the changes we want to see. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Thank you.
This concludes our local candidate forum. Please join me in thanking the candidates for their participation and thoughtful answers. thank you to Ella and Caden, and for the civic-minded among you, I remind you that Election Day is Tuesday, November 2nd. Early voting begins Monday, October 18th. You may contact the Ellis County Clerk for more information. Thank you all for watching, both online and present, and I wish you all a good evening.